Hey, what's up, and welcome back to Full Academy. In the last episode, I talked about how there are four different sources of income: city collections, fights and negotiations, great building investments, and other income. And I also talked about how those income sources are all different. Now, in this episode, we're going to talk about how you can exploit these differences to grow and strengthen your overall income. If we take a closer look at each of the income streams, we'll see that each stream has its advantages and disadvantages. For city collections, we see that it is clearly the most stable, reliable, and passive stream of income. But building up your city collections can take time and has a lower ceiling potential, I would argue, than some of the other income streams. The fights and negotiation stream is sort of the opposite. It is the most variable and volatile source of income and really requires much more effort to maximize. However, through GBG, you can start winning a substantial amount of Forge Point rewards fairly early on, even as your city is quite weak and undeveloped. As long as you have goods to trade, an okay attack boost, and a strong GBG guild, then the amount of Forge Points that you can earn here will mainly be limited by your own activity level. So more effort should translate to more income. Income from great building investments are a little bit better in terms of stability, reliability, and time commitment if you do them well. But it is still a stream where more activity generally translates into more income. It is arguably the most lucrative income stream with the highest ceiling potential, but to do it really well will require quite a bit of time. I'm talking about the time required to go through your friends and hood list a few times a day, finding the snipes that you're looking for, searching for new targets, checking for notifications that the building has been leveled, participating in Guild 1.9 threads and external 1.9 threads, and so on. Other income is also an in-between case, but I think with less overall potential, and as I said, it's not one of the main focuses of these lessons. Now, I've spent a good amount of time thinking about how these income streams are similar to what you might encounter in real life. And what I've come up with is this: that your city collections have characteristics similar to a paycheck or rental income in that it is time-based. You get paid every 24 hours. And it seems clear that great building investments have some of the same characteristics as real life investments, even though real life investments, of course, are a lot more complicated. The one that I've struggled the most with to connect to something in real life are the fights and negotiations. At first, I thought it was like working a second job or putting in overtime. But I now think that the closest thing is really gig economy income, like driving for Uber, shopping for Instacart and TaskRabbit, but with a random pay system. This is because these are sources of income that are gig or task based. You have to complete a task in order to get paid. Fights and negotiations income is similar. You can only hope to get a reward when the fight or negotiation is successful. And the only way to earn more rewards is to move from one fight to the next. You're not obligated to continue, and you have the flexibility to stop at any time, but the rewards will immediately stop when you stop. So that brings us to income diversification, which is about accessing all of these different forge point sources and developing multiple income streams. Diversification has two main benefits. First, assuming that you have the time, the best way to maximize your forge point income is to diversify. That way, you'll be able to earn forge points from your city collections, from fighting, from negotiating, and from sniping. That is how you can grow your city as quickly as possible. But again, That's assuming that you have the time to do all of those really well. The other benefit of diversification is that it protects you from over-reliance on one income stream. As I said earlier, no income source or income stream is perfect, and each has pros and cons. That means that if you over-rely on any one income stream, then your income will take on the same advantages and disadvantages of that stream. For example, there was a time early on when I relied on GBG for about 80 or so percent of my income. On the plus side, that meant that I was often able to put more effort into the game to earn many more forge points than my city was capable of producing itself. But the downside was that this income was highly variable and was dependent on who we were getting matched up with in GBG. But by developing and drawing income from multiple streams or multiple sources, you will be less exposed if there is a drop-off in any one of your income streams. For example, there have been times where my guild has been pinned by two strong guilds and my GBG income has really suffered. But as I've developed my ARC and developed my investment capabilities, I've been able to, during those times, focus more on my GB investments and sniping my hoods and my friends list harder so that my actual income could grow, would stay the same or even grow larger that season. Lastly, something that isn't talked about enough is that once you have all of these income streams built out, you now have the flexibility to adjust and change up your play. For example, ever since I got my ARC up to level 140 plus, I grew tired of free farming in GBG and pressing those buttons over and over and over and going through all the swap seasons. And so what I've done is really significantly reduced my GBG activity and given up those fights so that our guild members, especially the developing ones, can get those free fights and the rewards that come from them. And because I had invested so heavily in my ARC and boosting up my contribution rewards to 1.96 plus, I have still been able to rake in about 3,000 to 4,000 forge points a day by doing this. So I like to say that I've reached the point where I no longer want to or have to keep so-called driving for Uber. I want to be able to continue to get an income, but with less time intensity than before. This table provides a summary of what it takes to develop each of these income streams. So as you can see, for city collections, it's about laying down forge point producing buildings and tacking on income boosts from the Blue Galaxy or research boosts that you get from being in a higher level guild. For fights and negotiations, most of the supporting capabilities are about improving your attack so that you can fight better, longer, faster, and to higher attrition. Here we're talking about leveling up great buildings like the military trio, the TA, the Traz, and perhaps the Kraken. But another supporting capability is being in a guild that provides you with the opportunities to get fights and negotiations in GBG. And if you're looking to maximize your fighting and negotiating income, finding the right guild can be tricky. In my opinion, a developing player needs to find a sweet spot between having the support of a strong guild and yet getting enough opportunities to get GBG rewards. Because while you might want to be part of a strong guild that builds siege camps and never gets pinned, you don't want to be part of a guild that is so strong that it loads sectors so quickly that you barely get in any fights, like 5 or 6 fights per sector. I've heard about developing players getting even fewer than that. You don't want the other extreme either, a weaker and less active GBG guild that is always being pinned to its base, and where you're always having to fight at full attrition. No free fights. Also, I didn't include it in this table, but I suppose that having stronger guild buildings, like the Ark, the Atomium, or the Observatory could also be considered supporting capabilities for fights and negotiations because they help to fund the camp support that you'll need in GBG. Also, many strong GB guilds will insist on minimum Arc and Obs levels. For great building investments, you're going to need forge points and profitable investment opportunities. Your ability to profit from these investments will be greatly enhanced by getting a higher contribution reward boost from your Arc and developing a good list of players that you can snipe either from your friends list or from your hood. But there are a lot of other things that you can do, and I apologize that I don't have enough space to put them down here. But just to throw out a few examples, you can team up with a snipe partner, age up because many of the higher ages tend to have more and better snipe opportunities, and you can even join some external 1.8 or 1.9 threads. I've listed a number of things here that are important for growing your other income, but again, since it's not really a focus of this lesson, I'm not going to spend time going over them. So here are the takeaways from this episode. First, no income stream is perfect. They all have their pros and cons. Second, building up each of these income streams is important to maximizing your overall income and growing your city faster. It also reduces your exposure to the downsides of any single income stream and may enable you to make adjustments down the road. I mentioned how I've recently pulled way back on the amount of free farming that I do in GBG. But another example would be if your real life situation changes and you have almost no free time to spend on the game. Wouldn't it be great then to have a city that already produces a lot of forge points or an inventory full of store building sets and forge point buildings that you can lay down? That way you could kind of reconfigure your city so that you can then just log on a few times a day for a few minutes, collect, and then log off. Lastly, it's really important to have a good understanding of what it takes to properly develop each of these income streams so that you can develop the right plan for your city. Well, that's it for this episode. In the next episode, we're going to take a look at a survey that I conducted to see how various players, including a number of elite players, make their income. Thank you, and please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel.